first hearing in the U.S. Justice Department's antitrust suit against AT&T is set for 2 weeks from today. The government wants to block AT&T's purchase of T-Mobile, but the judge is ordering both sides to talk about the prospects for settling the case. And that has some observers wondering whether the judge has gone too far. Silicon Valley antitrust lawyer Gary Reback of Carr Ferrell is asking if Judge Ellen Huval has taken telecommunications policymaking into her own hands. Gary, welcome back to Bloomberg West. He joins us live now from Palo Alto. Gary, first of all, what is your reaction to this judge's decision? I mean, is this something that can be settled outside of litigation?
Well, you know, Emily, in the last couple of days, there's been a lot of speculation by D.C. lawyers in blogs and in the press that the government is just posturing for a better settlement. So perhaps the judge wants to know now if the case is settleable. And if it is, she wants it settled now before everybody does a lot of work.
But is it settleable? I mean, it seems like AT&T and the U.S. government are on completely opposite ends of the spectrum.
The government's complaint makes it clear that they're worried about the loss of national competition from T-Mobile. That's not the kind of thing you can rectify through selected spin-offs. Now, I suppose AT&T might be willing to promise the FCC it won't raise rates, but that kind of regulation is really out of vogue. So I agree with the tenor of your question. This is a tough case to settle.
Now, if they can't come to a settlement, how many years could litigation actually take before we see a resolution here?
Well, I don't think it will be years. As I understand it, the agreement, the acquisition agreement, sets a deadline of next March for busted deal fee purposes. The closest analogy we have is the government filing suit to try to block Oracle's acquisition of PeopleSoft. That case went to trial almost exactly 1 year after the government filed suit. This judge is even more brisk in her docketing, so it may go to trial after the first of the year, even though it's a mammoth case.
Now, Sprint is suing AT&T. What kind of impact could that have on this case?
Well, that's a very interesting question. The Sprint case will likely be consolidated with the government's case. I've been in Sprint's situation a number of times, and I can't help but wonder if the Antitrust Division of the Department of Justice didn't ask for or at least welcome Sprint's participation. After all, Sprint has a lot of telecom expertise. AT&T is going to pursue a policy of dumping mounds of documents on the government and overpowering them with all the details of this industry. And perhaps, in the Justice Department's view, Sprint can help them. And from Sprint's perspective, I think they'd like to be there to try to give the government as much backbone as they can.
Gary, now let's move on to Google. Give us an update on where a number of the lawsuits stand between Google and the U.S. government.
Well, there are investigations right now as opposed to lawsuits. And the Federal Trade Commission in the United States is proceeding ahead. There are a group of states that are proceeding ahead, and the European Union is proceeding ahead. But the big news is that there's going to be a hearing before the Antitrust Subcommittee of the Senate Judiciary Committee, I think on the same day that AT&T hearing is scheduled for, September 21st.
What kind of lobbying, give us an idea of what kind of lobbying and behind-the-scenes discussions that Google is having right now to try to get some of these lawmakers on side?
Oh, as I understand it, Eric Schmidt, the chairman of Google, former CEO, is making a tour of Capitol Hill even as we speak. And he is meeting with members of the Senate Judiciary Committee to pitch Google's perspective. Google, as you'll recall, hired up a dozen lobbying firms, and I'm sure they're hard at work planting the seed of Google's strategy. They've been active in places like Minnesota and Wisconsin, where they have senators on the Antitrust Subcommittee. So there's a lot going on behind the scenes.
So what exactly do you think Eric Schmidt is trying to convince them of? What is his argument?
Well, I think we're beginning to see the shape of Google's argument. You know, Emily, right now, the biggest issue in Washington is jobs. We don't have enough in the economy. And paradoxically, Google, I think, is going to be telling people that, notwithstanding the fact that it's wiping competitors out, it's actually creating jobs. And I think it's going to say that it works with local merchants to get merchants onto the internet, and that those merchants expand, and that creates jobs. And so Google is a wonderful company.
Google did say it plans to add 6,000 jobs this year. We'll see how the government responds to that. All right, Gary Reback of Carr and Ferrell, thanks for joining us here on Bloomberg West.